While some argue that zoos restrict animals' freedom, others believe they play a crucial role in conservation, education, and species preservation, when operated under ethical guidelines. The ethical implications of keeping wild animals in captivity have sparked ongoing debate among biologists, conservationists, and animal welfare advocates around the world. Zoos, when committed to scientific integrity and habitat simulation, can serve as essential research hubs for studying animal behavior, health, and reproduction under controlled yet naturalistic conditions. Although it is impossible to fully replicate the complexity of an animal's native ecosystem, modern zoos make significant efforts to approximate natural stimuli and behavioral opportunities. The most progressive zoos incorporate behavioral enrichment programs designed to stimulate cognitive functions and promote species-specific physical activity among captive populations. I was struck by how intricately the zoo's design mirrored various biomes, from arid deserts to dense rainforests, offering a multisensory learning experience for visitors. Observing the elephants engage in cooperative feeding behaviors reminded me of how profoundly social and intelligent these creatures are, in both captive and wild environments. Through carefully curated educational signage and interactive exhibits, the zoo succeeds in raising public awareness of environmental degradation and species extinction. A particularly moving experience was witnessing the zoo's rehabilitation efforts for animals rescued from illegal trade, injury, or abandonment by exotic pet owners. The zookeeper's lecture on the interplay between genetic diversity and successful captive breeding underscored the importance of collaborative zoological databases and international species registries. Though the cheetah's speed is its most famous trait, its delicate health and solitary nature also present major challenges in captive conservation. Zoos today serve as ambassadors for wildlife, bridging the gap between urban populations and the often invisible crises occurring in ecosystems across the globe. Witnessing the orangutans solve mechanical puzzles and use tools emphasize their impressive problem-solving abilities and the critical need for habitat protection in Southeast Asia. The emotional responses of visitors, particularly children, reinforce the role zoos play in fostering empathy and a lifelong interest in wildlife and conservation. Many modern zoos operate under the guiding principle that every animal deserves an environment that supports its physical, emotional, and psychological well-being. While observing the lions, I could not help but reflect on the stark contrast between captivity and the complex realities of survival in the wild. The zoo's participation in rewilding initiatives, where animals are prepared for eventual release, represents a paradigm shift in captive management philosophies. Zoos must continuously evaluate their practices to balance public engagement with ethical responsibility and scientific credibility. As I listened to the veterinary team discuss chronic stress in primates, I realized how much behind-the-scenes work supports visible animal health. The giraffe's long, elegant movements across the savanna-like enclosure highlighted the zoo's success in mimicking key environmental features of their native habitats. Exhibits that integrate climate control, flora diversity, and natural topography allow animals to express innate behaviors, even in constrained artificial ecosystems. I was impressed by the zoo's effort to incorporate local biodiversity, emphasizing that conservation begins in one's immediate environment. One cannot overlook the role of technology, like GPS collars and biometric trackers, in improving animal monitoring and welfare in both zoos and the wild. The zoo's nocturnal house allows researchers to study behavioral patterns in species that would otherwise be inaccessible due to their nighttime activity. The use of operant conditioning in veterinary training not only reduces stress, but also improves safety and health outcomes for both animals and staff. While some species adjust relatively well to captivity, others experience chronic stress, altered behaviors, and reduced life expectancy if not properly cared for. The zoo's commitment to zero waste and sustainable energy usage serves as a model for how institutions can support both wildlife and the environment simultaneously. Animals born in captivity often lack the survival skills necessary for reintroduction, making responsible long-term planning essential. to any conservation strategy. What struck me most about the zoo's educational center was its candid acknowledgement of ethical dilemmas involved in wildlife management and captivity. In many cases, zoos are the last hope for species whose native habitats have been irreversibly damaged by deforestation, mining, or urban sprawl. Zoos today act not merely as entertainment venues, but as vital nodes in the global network of biodiversity preservation. The flamingo's synchronized movements were not only visually stunning, but also indicative of complex social structures among flock animals. I found the comparative anatomy exhibit enlightening, especially in illustrating how evolutionary adaptations reflect different environmental pressures across species. It was heartening to see how animal welfare had clearly become a central concern in every aspect of zoo operations. Though they cannot replace wilderness, zoos can inspire a sense of stewardship and global responsibility toward endangered species. The lemur's loud vocalizations echoed through the trees, mimicking the sounds they use to communicate in the forests of Madagascar. I appreciated how the zoo reframed less popular or uncharismatic species as ecologically essential, promoting a more inclusive view of biodiversity. Zookeepers spoke about the importance of consistency in animal care routines to establish trust and reduce anxiety in long-term residents. Conservation success stories, like the reintroduction of California condors or Arabian oryx, would not be possible without the work of modern zoos. The ethical future of zoos will likely depend on their ability to innovate while adhering to ever-evolving animal welfare standards. The reptile house featured a collection of endangered amphibians whose populations are declining due to a global fungal pandemic. While touring the veterinary center, I saw how routine health assessments are conducted with minimal intrusion or distress. The zoo's architecture integrated green roofs and solar panels, demonstrating a commitment to sustainability beyond animal conservation. The educational staff led discussions about how deforestation and climate change are interlinked with rising extinction rates. I was deeply moved by a photo exhibit documenting the rescue of trafficked animals, many of which now live at the zoo. The soundscape of the zoo, a mix of animal calls, running water, and rustling leaves, enhanced the immersive experience. I had not realized how intricately interconnected each species is until I learned about food web dependencies and predator-prey dynamics. Through partnerships with universities, the zoo facilitates long-term studies on animal cognition, stress management, and adaptive behaviors. A surprisingly emotional moment was seeing a blind turtle navigate its enclosure, using only smell and vibration cues. I left the zoo not only entertained, but intellectually enriched, with a deeper respect for ecological complexity. While observing the penguins, I noticed how their social hierarchy influenced feeding behavior and movement within their highly structured colony. The lion's pacing behavior, often misunderstood by visitors, may indicate cognitive engagement rather than distress when enrichment tools are present. One impressive innovation was the use of scent trails to encourage natural hunting patterns among captive carnivores. The zoo's breeding success with critically endangered amphibians has been recognized by international wildlife conservation bodies as a model for others. Listening to the researcher explain how genetics guides mating choices was a masterclass in applied biology and animal management. It's important to recognize that the animals visible to the public represent only a fraction of the zoo's total research population. Zoos now serve as custodians of what remains of the planet's most vulnerable species, often bridging gaps left by failed policies. The orangutan's problem, solving tasks which involved tool use and memory recall, revealed a surprising level of abstract reasoning. Understanding animal behavior in captivity can offer valuable insights that inform protection strategies in wild populations. Although zoos face opposition, many now emphasize transparency, inviting the public to witness feeding, enrichment, and medical care routines. The sloth's slow, deliberate movement reminded me of how nature optimizes every species for its specific ecological niche. I appreciated how the zookeepers addressed the common myths about animals, replacing them with research-based explanations. The keeper explained that training animals to cooperate in their care minimizes the need for sedation or restraint. Zoos have evolved into multidisciplinary institutions, where biology, psychology, design, and ethics intersect in meaningful ways. The otters group interactions were fascinating, showing signs of role differentiation and cooperative play. While some zoos house charismatic megafauna to attract visitors, others focus on less-known species that are equally vital ecologically. The zoo's educational signage often featured QR codes linking to live webcams or expert interviews, enhancing learning opportunities. It was clear that the animals were given choices about where to go, what to eat, and when to rest. Understanding each animal's natural rhythms is essential in providing a daily routine that respects its biological clock. The flamingo's leg lifting behavior, which seems whimsical, actually plays a role in regulating body temperature. One exhibit compared endangered species populations over the past decade, illustrating both positive trends and ongoing crises. Zookeepers undergo rigorous and continual training in animal handling, safety protocols, and species-specific behavioral science. Rather than acting as static displays, zoo animals now participate in research that may influence wildlife policy worldwide. As I observed a group of children interact with a zookeeper, I saw education and empathy forming in real time. The architectural layout of each habitat was informed by both topography and animal visibility for ease of monitoring. By simulating seasonal changes, the zoo supports animals' breeding cycles and circadian health. The vulture exhibit explored the important role scavengers play in disease control and ecological balance. I noticed that many enclosures had hidden spaces, allowing animals to retreat when they did not want to be seen. A keeper demonstrated how scent enrichment can reduce stereotypic behaviors in large mammals. Although technology aids in monitoring animal health, nothing replaces the deep intuition developed through daily keeper-animal interactions. The giraffes moved through their enclosure in a calm procession, seemingly unbothered by the steady flow of human observers. A major takeaway was how habitat destruction often poses a greater threat to species than poaching or direct conflict. The zoo partners with local communities in conservation areas, offering support and education to reduce human-wildlife conflict. Some species, such as the pangolin, remain largely unknown to the public, despite facing imminent extinction. I was impressed by the accessibility features that made zoo education available to people of all ages and abilities. Behind the scenes, extensive data is gathered to track animal health trends and inform individualized care plans. The bear exhibit was designed to encourage digging, climbing, and other instinctive behaviors for physical and mental stimulation. Although they live in an urban environment, these animals remain powerful reminders of nature's vastness and diversity. Seeing animals from across the world in one location made the idea of biodiversity feel more personal and urgent. The zoo's use of augmented reality allowed visitors to experience how animals move in their natural environments. It was fascinating to learn how certain animals communicate through infrasound, frequencies we humans cannot detect. During the Q&A, one expert explained how reproductive cycles are influenced by light, temperature, and diet. By observing even subtle changes in behavior, zookeepers are often the first to detect early signs of illness. I hadn't considered how much design and engineering goes into building a habitat that is both safe and stimulating. One highlight was watching a behavioral training session, where the zookeeper worked with positive reinforcement techniques. The animal ambassadors helped humanize conservation topics, especially for younger audiences unfamiliar with global environmental issues. The zoo's commitment to scientific research was evident in the number of published studies and academic partnerships displayed. Even in the face of criticism, zoos continue to adapt, innovate, and advocate for the world's most vulnerable species. I came away with a renewed sense of responsibility for how my actions impact the natural world. Though brief, my visit to the zoo offered a glimpse into the complexity, fragility, and wonder of life on Earth.